with what you need to know. Now streaming on Disney+.
I'm Medea Villarreal in Houston, Texas. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming with ABC News Live. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We do begin with that mass shooting in Midtown Manhattan. It happened outside 345 Park Avenue between 51st and 52nd Streets. You can see a man walking with a rifle outside of the building on Park Avenue that contains the NFL headquarters and the financial company Blackstone, among other companies. Here's what we know at this hour. At least 4 people are dead and the shooter. The NYPD is set to hold a press conference beginning any moment. Take a look at this photo of people barricaded inside. There you go. People barricaded inside the building. Witnesses tell us about the harrowing moments of being inside during that lockdown. We then saw people, you see them right there, walking out with their hands up. Shootings of this type in Manhattan are exceedingly rare. While we await that press conference, let's go right to our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, what are you learning about what's happening in this moment?
The authorities are now working with the name of the individual that was found dead on the 33rd floor. It's not clear whether he ended up there on purpose or whether he fled there after shooting and killing 4 people, wounding others, and then he was found dead of what's believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The authorities hope that that name will give them some potential clues about a motive. They're digging into the individual's background now. They're coming up with multiple locations for the individual. And Linsey, they are also trying to make sure that that building is clear. 345 Park Avenue is a huge office building in Midtown Manhattan. You mentioned the NFL and Blackstone. There are plenty of other companies in there, and people were there finishing up their workday when shots were fired and people were told to shelter in place. A number of people barricaded doorways with furniture as they tried to keep themselves safe. And now the NYPD has been going through the building with the assistance of the FBI to make sure everybody is now able to get out of there safely. We've seen an image of the rifle that was used in this shooting, according to multiple sources. Linsey, authorities are investigating whether it may have been equipped with a silencer and whether it had a collapsible stock, which would have, in theory, allowed perhaps the gunman to conceal the weapon had he been walking around with it. Although the image we've seen, taken from security camera, shows the gun fully extended and him carrying it inside the building.
Aaron, do we have any idea if certain floors are still on lockdown at this time?
I had heard there was a focus on 31 and 32 and 33. And that obviously 33 where the suspect was found, and then 32, 31 may have been, where he was at different times. We'll wait for the press conference for them to say for sure whether all those floors have been cleared. But we've heard from people inside the building that it's been a very gradual process to let people out.
And we did just see an image of that bloodied long gun that we believe to be what the shooter brought into 345 Park Avenue just before 6:30 today. Aaron, just recap for us what we know about the shooter, and do we believe, because I know that you told us earlier that the police have been able to identify who they believe the shooter is, do we believe at this press conference that they will release his name?
They may well, and that could help if they're interested in working on motive, jog people that knew him and try to determine that. But they may also not. I mean, we'll see what they're able to come up with. But they do have a name they like. We've seen images of the individual, and the authorities will take that, build a profile to potentially steer them toward a motive. But the first priority is just to make sure they've tended to all of the victims, those who were shot, those who may have been injured in other ways, and then they may well let us know more about the shooter himself. There is, I think, going to be I would expect you to hear from both Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch and from Mayor Adams a mention about how rare this kind of workplace shooting is in New York City. The mayor often touts the safety of the city, the dropping numbers in shootings over the last couple of years, and I would expect to hear sentiments like that to reassure the community that this, that this is still a safe city, and that the public at large is not in danger.
And we know at this time that there are a number deceased. Do we have a sense if there are other victims still in the hospital at this point?
We believe there are, and I have to tell you, Linsey, that the numbers that we keep hearing have really fluctuated over the last couple of hours. We're comfortable reporting now that 4 people were shot and killed, in addition to the shooter, who appears to have taken his own life on the 33rd floor of the building after he had barricaded himself. Other people we believe were shot, and their status in the hospital has not been made clear. We'll see if the police give us an update. It's also possible we'll hear about individuals who were injured in other ways, either trying to flee or, perhaps moving furniture around as they tried to barricade themselves in what was a very scary situation.
Scary, no doubt. Aaron Katersky, our thanks to you as always. Let's go back to our Will Reeve, who's at the scene. Will, just recap what you're seeing.
All right, yeah, Linsey, it seems to be getting a little bit quieter here, certainly compared to a few hours ago when we arrived on the scene shortly after the incident occurred and they locked down all the blocks in multiple directions here in Midtown Manhattan. Slowly but surely, there have been police vehicles and other emergency response vehicles leaving the area or repositioning for a long time. We're on 49th Street. We're just a few blocks south on Park Avenue of that big building you see behind me, the large white one with the lights on in the middle. That's where it happened, and we're a few blocks south of that. And earlier, this was as close as anyone could really get. And not that you can get much closer, but there are onlookers who have been coming and going, as well as people just commuting throughout their evening as either tourists or employees of local businesses or in these office buildings. But now people have been able to get, get a little bit closer to see what's going on. The police presence is a little bit smaller, but still a massive presence here as police secure the area. Anyone who tries to get past sort of the perimeter gets politely but firmly steered around as they try to make sure that the area is clear, that all the people in that office building, 345 Park Avenue, are accounted for. As Aaron mentioned, it has been gradual work, clearing floor by floor with extra focus on that 33rd floor and the other floors that are right near where the suspect was found to have taken his own life after killing 4 people as he made his way into and through the building. And so as the first responders, as the police officers, as the EMTs, as the fire department and the rest of the emergency services personnel fan out, secure the area, secure the building, we're going to learn more in this press conference that should be happening any minute now at Weill Cornell, Mayor Adams, other New York City officials, and that 10 p.m. or thereabouts, now that it's past 10 p.m. press conference, suggests that they have at least a sense of at least information that they are willing to share with the media and thus with the public. But as of now, as Aaron mentioned, we don't yet know the motive, so perhaps learning more about this shooter will then jog the memories of people who knew him, or people might be able to connect him to other things that they know that might be able to paint a clearer picture of why exactly this man walked into an office building on maybe the most famous street in all of New York and began opening fire with a long gun. It's almost unfathomable that such a thing would happen here in this part of New York, in New York at all, but certainly in this business district, this shopping district, this tourism district. We're just blocks north of Grand Central Terminal with its famous ceiling. We're in the middle of Manhattan in the literal and figurative sense here. And we're going to hear more from Mayor Adams and should give us a clearer picture.
All right, Will Reeve, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett as we await that press conference. Brad, based on your experience, is there a shooting of this magnitude where there were not any warning signs?
Well, there's going to be some warning signs. Now, how specific they are, Linsey, Well, we'll have to see. I mean, typically people who commit this type of mass violence will deteriorate over a period of time. When I say deteriorate, in other words, that maybe they were angry about something that's related to that building, worked there before, whatever it might be, an issue with somebody personally there, and that festers over a period of time until something happens, something that wouldn't trigger the average person to go commit this horrible violence, but it's enough for him to justify to go and do it. And so will that be there? Maybe. I mean, we all have this problem of were there warning signs enough to stop him? And so many times they're not. In other words, a troubled person, talking in dark ways, acquiring weapons. They're doing a lot of things that are troubling, but they're not against the law. And so as a result, it's really difficult. In his case, we'll have to see, were there clear warning signs that people ignored, didn't report them? Maybe, but it tends to be more of, it's not explicit, but it's a gradual deterioration of the person until they have enough things going on, enough feelings of powerlessness, and that they have to do something to feel better about themselves. And that typically is why they go and commit these mass shootings. And the other side, and we don't know that it's relevant to this shooter, Linsey, but fame plays a big role in mass shooters. They want to be recognized because fame is power to many people. And so some of that may be playing into this, but clearly the powerless part is almost in every one of these shooters, and they feel like there's no other way out than to commit these types of horrible acts.
Brad, as we're awaiting this press conference with the mayor and NYPD, give us a sense of what you're going to be listening for.
Well, the mayor may or may not share this person's name, but perhaps he'll give us more information. My guess is he'll sort of run through a timeline and talk about, there were sadly a number of people deceased and maybe others injured. And he may or may not share information about, if they have it at this point, as to why this guy was in the building on this day with that weapon. But hopefully we'll walk away with at least more information that we can sort of better assess what really happened here. But it's going to be pretty quick because it's only been a few hours. And even though they've probably done searches, pulled up social media, maybe had ATF trace the weapon, all of those things, still may not give you a rich picture, but it may give you a better picture of who he is.
And Brad, give us a sense of at what point the FBI gets involved, when an event has happened in New York City. Is there a clue here that the suspect perhaps is from out of state and therefore the FBI immediately works in concert with the NYPD? Well,
maybe, but understand, Linsey, that there are so many people, NYPD working with the FBI working with NYPD on various task forces. And as we've noticed, even in rural mass shootings, you tend to get the FBI and the ATF to show up to help in a support role, in an interviewing role, to your question about out of state, to get things immediate from whatever location the shooter might be from. That's all helpful from a technical standpoint. It goes on and on. Now, we've obviously seen in other cases the FBI ends up then being the lead. We don't have any information to suggest that in this case. I mean, clearly there are cases that it's got some terrorism aspect to it. Domestic terrorism, international terrorism, whatever it might be, will lead the FBI to the front of the line, basically, of running the case. But I don't get any flavor, at least up to this point, that will happen.
All right, Brad Garrett, thank you so much. I want to bring back in on the phone retired chief of detectives for the NYPD. Actually, we got you here on Zoom, Bob Boyce. Bob, we expect to hear from Mayor Adams in the NYPD shortly. What are you going to be listening out for?
Oh, I just want to see what exactly he was engaged in when he first came in with that gun. And was the officer there? We're trying to put people in places right now to figure that out. All evidence leads right now that the officer immediately confronted him when he walked in the door with that gun, and they were downstairs at that time. So he was there on his paid detail, working off duty, but it was sanctioned by the NYPD. That's what we're looking to see right now, is exactly what happened, who was shot, then where he went from there. Every step he made in that building, Linsey, I want to know what happened. Right now, it's an NYPD case, and it'll probably say an NYPD case outside of any new information going on.
I do see a number of news sources that are reporting his age and location and name. We are not just yet here at ABC. Do you anticipate that will be released at the press conference?
Oh, yes, they'll come up with it. It's been a while now. They've had nearly 4 hours since the incident. So they have enough information to give you a preliminary understanding of what happened right now. There's been several pictures that have been taken at the crime scene. A lot of work has been done. A lot of research has been sent there. So right now we have some kind of operating plan going forward into this man's life. Was he a lone wolf? It certainly appears that way right now, but we don't know who he talked to and what he was saying to those people, exactly why he was there.
A number of us have been inside this building before and know it well. It's a very secure building. Obviously, there were a number of security officers, including this off-duty NYPD officer, there in the lobby. Would it be customary for anyone in the lobby in a building like this to have a firearm?
It's not unusual for that front. That's your choke point right now. You're going to stop people coming in and ask them their business. So you would have someone armed normally in private sector security. Again, if they're hiring an officer to work pay detail, they know that person's armed, so they're comfortable with that as well.
Retired chief of detectives for the NYPD and ABC News contributor Bob Boyce, we thank you so much.
Thanks.
Newman now. And Elizabeth, same question for you as far as what you're going to be listening for in particular during this press conference.
Apologies for that. We're hoping to learn as much as we can about the suspect, about the age, any motive that they may have been able to pick up by now, the grievance that might be at play here. Where did this individual come from? How did they get to New York, to Midtown Manhattan? Any places that they've discovered as residences, whether they're actually inside those the residence, the car, anything that this individual has touched, a hotel room in the last few days. Are they inside? Are they now piecing together the puzzle pieces to understand how we got to this moment today? So that's usually the first set of information that we're looking for. And then it usually takes longer to better understand the warning signs that might have been displayed, whether people in his life, loved ones or colleagues or friends, had noticed that something was going wrong. And to ultimately, what I look for when we're doing these kind of investigations is the signs and indicators that we can use in the future to try to stop this from ever happening again. So piecing together the path that this individual took to get to today does help us hopefully prevent future attacks.
And Elizabeth, as we're waiting the New York mayor and NYPD to address the nation, just want to get your sense on that 33rd floor. Do you have any sense? We all are, it's conjecture at this point, but if that was a destination or somewhere he wound up, like how significant is that at this point?
It's certainly very interesting. I'm wondering if they're going to answer that for us. I'm also looking for where of the deceased, the civilians that were harmed, where were they when he shot at them? And that might also tell us if this was a very specific target. It seems in a building that size, around this time of day, he could have killed more people. So I am curious if that in and of itself is an indicator that he had a very specific target that he was trying to reach. Maybe that was on the 33rd floor. As Aaron was saying earlier, it could also be that that's where he ended up because he was running from security or from law enforcement, and that was the end of his run. There's a lot that I hope the police are able to tell us. It is very, very early in the investigation, and often early information is not accurate. So we should definitely exercise caution. We're probably not going to learn as much as we might hope, but you can see that they are on top of this and looking under every stone to try to better understand this individual's motives and to reassure the public that the situation is secure and that there are no other perpetrators out there that might be wishing to cause harm.
Elizabeth, thank you. Again, as we're waiting the arrival of Eric Adams, New York City mayor, to participate in this press conference. I want to bring back in Aaron Katersky. Aaron, give us a sense. I see a number of outlets are reporting the suspect's name, age, and where he's from. I know that we are not yet as a network. Do you believe that that's something that is going to be shared here at the press conference?
I think it is. I think the authorities are prepared to release the name and give us a preliminary indication of what they've been able to find. I think we'll also hear a little bit more about his movements inside the building. And I'm wondering whether he ended up on 33 because that was his only option. You know, some of the elevators in that building are locked. In other words, you can only access them if you have a swipe badge or some other way to access certain floors. So it may well be that the elevator bank going to the 33rd floor was the only one that was unlocked. So it could have just been by happenstance that he ended up there, or maybe not. So I think some of those details may well become clear when the authorities begin. They will undoubtedly start with the victims and make mention of the NYPD off-duty officer who was working a security detail, tell us about the interaction. We know the mayor's been to the hospital to sit at the officer's bedside. So I would imagine we'll hear something about that too, Linsey.
Right, because of course, well, we do know that at least 4 people lost their lives, plus the shooter who ultimately took his own life. We don't know the extent of the other victims involved who may be hospitalized at this point. Give us a sense as far as those the workers who remained there on the 33rd floor and surrounding floors. Do we believe that they are still there at this hour in that partial lockdown, I guess, if you will, of that part of the building?
Some may be, although I think by now many of them have been allowed to leave. And I'll tell you, Linsey, as I've heard from people who were inside the building at the time, they and really others around the city are quite shaken by this. New York City, you work in high-rises. You work in buildings like this. And since 9/11, measures have been taken to make sure they are secure, whether it's guards at the gate, swipe badges to get access. Now, a lot of that goes out the window when somebody has a high-powered rifle, as this individual did. But people who work in these kinds of offices that are not, where you're not necessarily feeling vulnerable, I think people have been shaken by what's gone on at 345 Park Avenue because so many people who go to work in Manhattan work in a very similar environment.
And give us a sense of, we talk about how rare this is, but in New York City for these kinds of workplace shootings to take place.
They occur every now and again. There was one at a hospital that I can think of within the last decade or so, but it is fairly rare to see this kind of mass shooting with a long gun at a Midtown office building like this. I can't think of a another one. And I think you'll hear from the mayor and the police commissioner that this is the exception. That's not to say there's not gun violence in New York City. There certainly is, and it's been waning. But this kind of violation of an office building, security and somebody getting into the upper floors of a building, for as many of those kinds of buildings as there are in Manhattan, is quite rare.
Aaron, hang on with us, if you will. I want to bring back in Bob Boyce and put the same question to you. Just how rare this is for a workplace shooting, mass casualty event. Actually, Bob, if you can just hold on with us for a second. We do have Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, at the podium.
This never gets easy. I always go back to the beginning of my role as mayor in Harlem Hospital, where Officer Mora and Rivera were assassinated. And I remember watching their family members enter the hospital and a loud yell of, "No, God, please tell me it's not true." And I thought about that today when the notification came over from the police commissioner that we had a number of shots fired, and we're still unraveling what took place. And our hearts are heavy. 5 innocent people shot tonight. We lost 4 souls to another senseless act of gun violence, including a member of the New York City Police Department, Officer Islam. He served in the 47th Precinct. He was just 36 years old and a 3.5-year veteran of the department. He was doing what he does best, and all members of the police department carry out. He was saving lives. He was protecting New Yorkers. He's an immigrant from Bangladesh, and he loved this city. And everyone we spoke with stated he was a person of faith and a person that believed in God and believed in living out the life of a godly person. He embodies what this city is all about. He's a true blue New Yorker, not only in the uniform he wore, but in his spirit and energy of loving this city. And early tonight, I met with the officer's family. I told them that he was a hero, and we admire him for putting his life on the line. This was his dad's only son. Now think about Jordan, my child, and it's unimaginable to experience a loss of this magnitude. And 3 other innocent civilians are also dead. 2 males and 1 female, and another male is seriously injured, fighting for his life in critical condition because of the violent, despicable attack. Additionally, the shooter is dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. To be clear, 6 total tonight died, 1 including the perpetrator. And I'm sorry, 6 total was shot tonight, 1 including the perpetrator. No words can describe this act of evil, a man who takes the life of others who are innocent. And no words can fill the void that has been left by this tragedy. Our hearts break for the families and friends of the victims. We pray for the swift and safe recovery of the injured. The horrific crime reminds us all how easy it is to gain access to a gun. Gun violence has scarred so many neighbors and ripped apart too many families across this entire country. and we will continue the fight to do all we can to protect our city. But tonight we mourn for those who were killed, and we pray for the families as they go through this painful moment. And as I stated, 5 innocent people were shot, and the perpetrator was shot. We will continue to do what we do as a city, and that's fight to protect innocent New Yorkers. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, Commissioner Tisch.
Thank you, sir. The information that I'm about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At 6:28 p.m., the 911 call center started receiving multiple 911 calls for an active shooter inside of 345 Park Avenue at 52nd Street in Manhattan. What happened next is under an active investigation, and details are still coming in, but here's what we know so far. Surveillance video shows a male exit a double-parked black BMW on Park Avenue between 51st and 52nd Streets, carrying an M4 rifle in his right hand. He walks towards the building's entrance. That individual was seen exiting the BMW alone. The building's security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire. He makes his way to the elevator bank, where he shoots a security guard who was taking cover behind the security desk. One additional male is shot in the lobby, per his own statement from the hospital. The shooter then calls the elevator, which opens in the lobby. A female exits that elevator, and he allows her to walk past him unharmed. He goes up to the 33rd floor, which is route and management, and begins to walk the floor, firing rounds as he traveled. One person was struck and killed on that floor. He then proceeds down a hallway and shoots himself in the chest. In total, we have 5 victims shot, our officer and 4 other innocent civilians, plus the shooter. The shooter is believed to be Shane Tamura, a 27-year-old male with a Las Vegas address. The vehicle he exited is registered in Nevada to Mr. Tamura. Inside of that vehicle, officers found a rifle case with rounds, a loaded revolver, ammunition, and magazines, a backpack, and medication prescribed to Mr. Tamura. The vehicle was searched by our bomb squad and found to be clear of any explosives. The initial investigation shows that Mr. Tamura's vehicle traveled cross-country through Colorado on July 26th, then Nebraska and Iowa on July 27th, and then in Columbia, New Jersey, as recently as 4:24 p.m. today. The vehicle entered New York City shortly thereafter. According to our law enforcement partners in Las Vegas, Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history. His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location. 345 Park Avenue is a commercial office building whose tenants include the NFL, Root and Management, KPMG, and Blackstone. At this time, 4 of the 5 victims are deceased, including our NYPD cop. Our officer was transported here to New York Presbyterian along with 1 male civilian, the lone shooting survivor, who is in critical but stable condition at this time. 2 other civilians, 1 male and 1 female, both deceased, were brought to Bellevue. The 4th civilian is a female who was found dead on the 33rd floor of the location. Additionally, there are 4 other victims being treated for minor injuries sustained in their attempts to flee the scene. Victims' names are being withheld at this time, pending family notification. Officers from our Special Operations Division are currently conducting a secondary sweep of the entire building. I want to be very clear. We believe this to be a lone shooter, and there is no longer an active threat to the public. But today, 4 innocent victims are dead. Among them is NYPD police officer Didarul Islam, 36 years old, 4 years on the job. Officer Islam was married with 2 young boys, and his wife is pregnant with their 3rd child. He's assigned to the 4-7 precinct in the Bronx. He was doing the job that we asked him to do. He put himself in harm's way. He made the ultimate sacrifice, shot in cold blood, wearing a uniform that stood for the promise that he made to this city. He died as he lived, a hero. I want to extend my profound sympathies to all of the victims and their families, and to the brave NYPD cops who today lost a brother. There are still many questions that we have to answer, and we will answer them. But for now, our city is in mourning for the innocent lives lost. May their memories be a blessing. Pat. Sorry.
Patrick Hendry, president of the PBA. This is a devastating night for our city, for our police department. Pure evil came to the heart of our city and struck innocent people. And one of our police officers who were protecting those people. We lost 4 people tonight in our hero brother who gave his life for this city. He was a hardworking police officer who was proud, we know, from hearing from his family, to put on that uniform and shield of a New York City police officer every day and went out and did his job. And he went out every single day to provide for his family, whether it was overtime or whatever he had to do to provide for this family. That's what he did on a daily basis. And his family is devastated. A wife losing a husband who provided for that family. A father who's not going to see his son again. And our hearts of every New York City police officer right now is hurting. We're hurting for our brother police officer who we lost. We're hurting for that family. We're hurting for all the victims and hurting for all the families of the victims. And we're all asking, why? Why did pure evil come here? And we know our police department and our law enforcement partners will work tirelessly to get those answers. But now our job as police officers is to be there for this family, to support them in any way that we can, to come together as a city, to be there for these families of the victims. And we will continue to do that because that's what New York City police officers do. And we're going to continue as police officers to go out and protect this city because we know that evil can strike at any time. But police officers are willing to risk their lives to protect everyone in this room and protect everyone in this city. So we ask all New Yorkers to pray for our police officers' family, to pray for all the victims and their families. And we need to stand united going forward. We thank you for covering this story.
Yeah, we are also joined by our federal partners from the ATF and the FBI. I want to give an opportunity to our partner in the FBI, a special agent in charge of the New York City Fields Office, Chris Rea.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, on behalf of all the men and women of the FBI, I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the victims of this senseless tragedy. And also personally, I want to extend my condolences to the police commissioner. And just please know, ma'am and Mr. Mayor, that you have the full force of FBI New York and the full force of FBI to get to the bottom of the answers. Upon learning of the incident this evening, FBI agents immediately deployed to the scene to assist our NYPD partners. While this remains an NYPD investigation, the FBI's New York office stands ready to provide any and all resources to assist our partners. Initial checks of our internal systems have not revealed any information about the subject. But when and if more information becomes available, we will share what we can, when we can, with the public. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do some on-topic questions, folks. Someone at CNN, please.
Just a quick question about the police officer. When he was getting in the lobby, did he have a chance to fire his weapon at the shooter, or was it completely hampered? And also, when the shooter got to the floor, approximately how many people were on that floor, and what were they doing?
All of this information is under active investigation. Videos are being reviewed. And then as this investigation continues to unfold, we'll be able to answer those questions. But right now, it's an active investigation.
Miles, Commissioner, if you could just talk about, he was working paid detail there, to people who might not know what that means, and was he the only officer working that paid detail there?
I believe that there were 2 officers in the building working paid detail assignments in different parts of the building.
And what is that? People, may say he's on his day off working in a uniform.
Paid detail is a program that we have set up at the police department that allows companies to hire officers in uniform to provide extra uniform security.
Commission, did she, based on interviews with witnesses, did she say anything at all? And secondly, did he leave behind any manifesto, any writings or leaflet?
I already described what we found in the vehicle, and it's too early in the investigation to discuss anything more.
Thank you.
Is there any indication that he had a prior connection to New York versus the real estate industry?
As I said, too early in this investigation to tell, but nothing that we have seen preliminarily.
Dean?
Commissioner, can you talk about what the medication was that was found in the vehicle?
I cannot.
Can you speak about any prior law enforcement contact you may have had?
I cannot, other than to say that our partners in Las Vegas made us aware of a mental health history.
Yes, Steve? What's your girl?
Please share any details you have regarding his history
I'm not there yet.
origin and whether or not he had.
Just what I said already. It was an M4 rifle, and we also found a revolver in the vehicle with ammunition and magazines. He did have a license in the state of Nevada.
Your one?
Was there any intelligence indicating that investigation was at risk beforehand? And are you considering this a targeted attack or an act of terrorism?
At this time, it's too early in the investigation to tell.
Thank you, everyone.
So there you have the press conference, which has just concluded here in New York City with NYPD, FBI, and also Mayor Adams. And I do want to just recap what we heard from the mayor, where he said 5 innocent people shot tonight. We lost 4, including Officer Islam, a 36-year-old, 3.5-year-old veteran of the NYPD, who is an immigrant from Bangladesh. He leaves behind a wife, 2 young sons, and his wife also pregnant with their 3rd child. We also heard that the shooter, the suspect, who they described as Shane Tamura from Nevada, 27 years old, and according to Nevada, he had documented mental health history, but still unclear why he targeted this particular location in Midtown Manhattan. Let's go right to our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky. And Aaron, we know that we did hear the NYPD commissioner kind of give a tick-tock of what happened. If you can kind of recap that for us, when they started getting 911 calls at about 6:28 p.m. today.
It started even before that. For several days, 27-year-old Shane Tamura, according to the NYPD, Linsey drove cross-country in a BMW that he apparently owned and entered New York City from New Jersey just this afternoon. Drove to Park Avenue and was seen at around 6:30 p.m., just before getting out alone from this BMW with an M4 rifle, entering the lobby of 345 Park Avenue, and immediately opened fire on the NYPD officer who was there working a paid security detail in uniform. The officer was shot and killed. The suspect, the gunman, Shane Tamura, ended up spraying bullets in the lobby, hitting others before fleeing up to the 33rd floor, which is Rudin Management, the company that operates the building. That's where he was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
And 4 other victims we learned just now, are also being treated for minor injuries. And we do understand that he did have a license for this gun.
He did have a firearms license from the state of Nevada, and the authorities are then going to be able to, in all likelihood, trace the provenance of the weapon. What they still are quite interested in is why he chose 345 Park Avenue. Did it have something to do with a company that's headquartered there, like the NFL or Blackstone or something else? We heard Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch say that the NYPD investigation has determined that Tamura has a documented mental health history. In addition to the rifle case and a revolver, there was also medication that was found in the car. This may well turn out to have been some kind of psychiatric episode or something having to do with his documented mental health history, Linsey. But why that building at this time, the authorities have not been able to answer just yet.
And while we don't know, it's too early, but it would seem that he was going for someone in particular, to the degree, I thought it was so interesting that the NYPD commissioner said he did allow the woman to leave the elevator unharmed. And then he continued to get onto the elevator.
Let that woman unharmed, but when he sprayed bullets in the lobby after he struck and killed the NYPD officer, a different woman was immediately shot. So it doesn't sound like anything other than indiscriminate killing, but the authorities certainly are going to be looking at any kind of potential connections between the suspect and his victims.
Aaron Katursky, thank you so much. I want to bring back in retired chief of detectives for the NYPD, ABC News contributor Bob Boyce. And Bob, we did just hear from the mayor, from the NYPD, from the FBI. It was very emotional for the mayor, as we know, a former police officer. Give us a sense of what it is like to lose one of your own in the line of duty, as he was referred to as a brother.
He is, and this has happened to me, and it's not easy to do. It's still pain. I feel right now for losing that officer who's just trying to raise his family, 2 children and another on the way, young wife. Just a terrible story. Immigrant from Bangladesh. You can see the pain etched in Commissioner Tisch's face. This is the first officer she's lost since she's become police commissioner, if I'm not mistaken, and it's painful. It really is. And it's tough to get through sometimes. But I think she hit on some points. She had a lot of information that this man drove across country, documented what states and where he was in Jersey earlier today. And what's eerie here is Linsey, is he had a mental health documented history with the Los Angeles Police Department, and he still bought a rifle and obviously a handgun and came and did this in New York. A lot more to develop, but some striking issues early on, some scary stuff early on. He could walk in a building like that.
I did want to just point that out, Bob. How does that work when you're purchasing a gun? I thought that there was an issue. It was kind of a red flag warning, right? If you do have mental health, that you shouldn't be allowed to purchase the gun.
Well, the red flag law is they'll take it from you. It won't prevent you. So someone will take you to court that you shouldn't have it, and that gun will be removed. But you can apparently there's a list of questions when you apply for this, and if you answer them correctly, you can get the weapon. And that's the issue here. That has to be investigated, because this is just shouldn't be in the hands of someone like that who has a documented mental history It tells me it's been more than once, just by the way she said it. So this is all further down the line that we as a country should look at and say, why did this happen? It doesn't make any sense. He also had another revolver in the car too. Left it double parked and went in on this insane mission to kill people. Immediately saw the police officer and shot him immediately. Some scary stuff.
There is also an investigation now that's happening in Las Vegas. If we have a video there, the home where they believe the suspect lived, give us a sense of what they'll be looking for inside the home.
So I can tell you right now, there's some people in the air right now going to Las Vegas from the NYPD to take part in that search to see if there's anything that could be revealed. What's going on? What did he do for a living? We don't even know yet. What's his background? What's his marital status? Does he have a family? All these things will go into it because right now we won't know certain things because he killed himself. But we can find out a better picture. What set him off on this mission to drive to New York City, all the way from Las Vegas, come into our city and immediately walk in and open fire on these people? Did he know the police officer was there? Is it something he just saw him and immediately shot him? It seems that way. The officer confronted him and he shot him, and then he shot someone else in the lobby as well. So he was on this mission to kill people, and then inexplicably, right now, he goes to the 33rd floor and goes to the Rubin Management Company. Mr. Rubin, I know pretty well. He's a great New Yorker. So very scary day for them as well, knowing that happened. Someone got shot on their floor, and then he took his own life there.
Certainly a very tense and stressful day for so many. Retired Chief of Detectives for the NYPD and ABC News contributor Bob Boyce, we thank you so much. I want to bring back in ABC News contributor Elizabeth Newman. Elizabeth, you were listening right along with us to that press conference. What stood out to you?
They provided a lot of information in a relatively short period of time that tells me that the investigation's proceeding rather quickly. That's good. The fact that the suspect drove, the fact that the suspect came from across the country, that's very curious. That's a very long way to drive, and usually there would be some sort of grievance associated with finding a target that far away. It takes a lot of planning to be able to make this happen. So it does sound like there is a history of mental health. I think we should be cautious. There's a variety of different types of mental health challenges that some of which do kind of lend themselves to having some violence challenges, some of which don't. And I'd like to learn more before we just chalk this up to a tradition. He was mentally ill. We don't actually know that he's mentally ill. There are a lot of other mental health issues that aren't necessarily what we consider a diagnosable mental illness. I would argue that most people that go and commit an act of targeted violence have a mental health issue. So I'd like to learn more about that, but it is notable that is a key feature of what they found in the car and in their conversations with Las Vegas Police Department. So certainly a lot of information in these early hours. I think they'll learn a lot more once they are able to get through the house in Las Vegas, start combing through things online and talking to his associates to better understand what's the core grievance here. It seems really odd to drive all the way across the country and target this building, maybe the 33rd floor, maybe it was the only floor that he could get to. We still don't know, but I'm sure the people of New York City would like to understand better what the motive was, even though that doesn't bring people back. It's still a very human thing to try to understand why this happened.
Sure. And as a former Department of Homeland Security official, what will happen now on the federal level?
Yeah, so the FBI is going to be providing support. You might see ATF involved. You might see a Secret Service involved. They often support through their threat assessment capabilities in targeted violence circumstances like this. And so it's often in a supporting investigative role, providing whatever resources NYPD or Las Vegas PD might need.
Elizabeth Newman, we thank you so much for your insight and your time. Really appreciate it. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Turnable King, man. Oh, wow. I'm getting a hug. Emotional. Huh. Is that a...
Don't worry. They're both all gender.
Are we all gender?
World has changed, Dad.
Bobby wants to bring that new girl over for dinner.
The vegan? What the hell am I supposed to feed her?
Can't we just put some grass in a bowl?
Picture this.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again.
One word out of you and I cut off your supply of Metamucil.
Does this mean you'll go?
Of course we'll go.
I'll go too.
Like you had a choice.
That cake is in the shape of...
Blanche, we know what it is.